everyone, Don here again with the update on the steerable tailwheel project for the War Corsair. Mentioned last week that we had a fly-in going on this past Saturday, and I was able to get the airplane out and put it out on the static display. I did meet a few folks that have been following my channel, so it was nice to see faces with the names. So what I got here now is this is basically the whole setup. What's going to be inside the plane. You'd seen some of this stuff before, but this is how it looks now. This little plastic jig here, the retractable landing gear linkage comes down through here, and then as the gear goes up and down, that linkage, they're half-inch square tubes, they move this way, and what that will do is that will keep this piece steady, because this has to stay centered with the tail wheel housing, and then you can get your travel up here out of the tail wheel itself. Alright, so what I've got here is this is a single loop cable. It starts it here, and what I've managed to do is, you can see here, this is what I come up with at the top of the tail. This is the rudder horn assembly out of the airplane. Now there's a wooden spar for the fin, comes up through here, and some 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch plywood. So this here assembly will go through that plywood on that vertical assembly here, and that'll hold this end in place. And as you can see here, I won't be using this ball on the end, but these little bushings I put in here is like this, so you can take this apart. And then there's a recess in here for the spring. Now when this is all in the airplane assembled, these parts will be tight, like so. This one's, the cable's not long enough, it's just a short piece I put on this side. But you can see these are countersunk, these springs. And what this will do is, they'll give when you're turning the rudder, and if the wheel doesn't want to go, these springs will take up some of that play. Plus it'll give it a little bit of a tail wheel spring. But this goes through the spar that deep, and that's fixed there. And then down on this end, you can see it attaches through these little bushings, couplings here. And then the cable comes through this center point here, and there's a thin piece of brass bushing in there. So when I tighten this set screw down, it'll crush that piece of brass onto the cable. And then the cable continues out, comes right back out around the other side and back. So it's one continuous loop. And then this whole assembly is essentially up here, above the tail. Let me put this on the tripod real quick. Alright, tip this up just a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about here. Swing this out so I can see it myself. So this assembly mounts up above the tail wheel like so. So when this thing swings back and forth, it pulls on these cables, causing it to turn like so. So once we turn, as you can see here, once that cable, if I can hold it steady enough, turns to this point, then it decouples, and there it's spinning. Then we come back around, it re-engages, that's locked again. And back the other side, it decouples. And there it's locked. This is pinned to the axle of the tail wheel, the pivot point. And then here is my release that when the gear is retracted, this will be attached up inside the aircraft. So that when this tail wheel goes up in, this will pull out. It only has to pull 1/8 of an inch, but it'll move a whole 1/4 of an inch. And that will decouple as well. And it's locked again. So when it gets up in there, the rudder will be free to move this around inside the tail without the tail wheel moving. And then when the tail wheel comes down, it pins again and it's back to working. Of course, this, like I said, this will be tightened on there, but you can see how that whole assembly works in there. This can't move. This has to stay fixed, so everything spins inside of it. And there's where it decouples. So that's the goal. That's the idea, folks. What I'm up to. I gotta tell you, it is one muggy mother out here today. So, as far as the fly-in Saturday, I took my camera, this camera, to actually take some video. But when I got there at 10 o'clock, there was a lot of aircraft already there. A lot of Cubs, a lot of tail draggers of all sorts of kind, factory built and experimental, some RVs. A lot of airplanes showed up. And when I got there, I fired the plane up, taxied it out from my hangar that I was staying at the flight school and over into the parking area, and I got pretty much dead center of Air Show Center, you could say. And as soon as I got there, got out of the plane just gets swarmed. And I got, like I said, it was 10 o'clock when I got out of the airplane. And I was there for an hour and a half. 11:30 was, I finally was able to step away from the plane and go get me a drink from what they were selling. They had breakfast going when I got there, but by the time I got in there at 11:30, they were already serving lunch. So, oh, by the way, I found my sand. It was at the flight school. It was setting on some stuff by the door there. I must have set it down there when I folded it all up and forgot it. But good thing I finally found it. But so I got swamped, and every time I walked away, I went and got a drink, sat down for a few minutes, and then there was just a big herd outside the plane again. So I go back out and tried to talk to as many people as I can to explain what they're looking at. So, but it was a nice turnout, and everybody was truly impressed with the plane and just absolutely loved it. There was a like an old DC-3 C-47, but it wasn't a C-47. It was another style of plane, but it was a World War II vintage airplane that was there, and it was there again last year. And they had big old military tents set up and a bunch of World War II themed stuff. Even the owner of the aircraft was all decked out in military garb, and he came over and he just absolutely loved the airplane. So this is what I've been up to. I went back down. I put the airplane away Saturday afternoon because, again, the weather was really iffy. It was pretty much overcast all day, threatening to rain, but it held off until the show was done. And so I put the plane back at the flight school, got out of there and got home, and then I went back down Sunday to take the tailwheel off and move the airplane back over to its hangar that it's going to be staying in while I'm there. So they had to clean up the tables and everything. They had most everything out of there, and there was still a few items left in there. So I couldn't put my plane where it was. There was a plane there that had a prop strike on something. It was a Husky. So he must have taxied into something and dinged up the end of his prop, so it's not going anywhere. So I had to push my plane in front of that, and then there was a little helicopter in there I had to keep clear of because they use that to fly the power lines. So, excuse me, you see these are stainless steel tubes that follows through, and then there's some 1/8" tubing inside of there for guides, so this thing won't be metal on metal. Everything's filled with this here's drilled halfway through for this size, halfway through for this size, and there's a small passage in the center just for the cable. Same way with both of these. On this end, I've got a piece of that tubing, plastic tubing, all the way up in through here as well, so nothing rubs metal to metal. So it's all just like a line, just like this cable assembly. Again, this is the rudder. The cables for the rudder hook to these two outer points. The width of this to the center there is the same as the length of center to center here. So it's 2 inches, 2 inches. And this, like I said, this back and forth. This would be forward, that's aft towards the tail. But that's kind of what I come up with, folks. You can see the retract linkage hooks to here, and like I said, that thing has to go through a short arc as it goes up and down, so I still have to trial fit this, but it's all snap ringed in there. These bushings here are snap ringed in, and they're bigger on the bottom than the top. These were original 5/8 inch holes in here, so I just utilized these holes, and you can see these are free to turn because I do have the snap rings keep them from falling out, and they can't fall out with the cables in there anyway, but the cables couldn't drop and rub. So what I have to do now is get this back in the airplane, locate this hole, drill a hole for 1/4 inch for this, and then for the other side. And essentially, this will probably have something similar to this, or I might crimp ends on it that are no bigger than 1/4 inch, so when you take this out you would be able to pull the cable and this spring right back through the hole, because everything would be 1/4 inch in diameter. I'd make a 1/4 inch fitting and probably crimp that on there with my hydraulic crimpers. So that is the goal, and if these springs are too weak I can always go to a stiffer spring. They had stiffer springs in this, but these got some pretty good tension. The idea is when you push on the rudder, the tail wheel may not turn while it's sitting, but as soon as you start moving, it'll move and should have some decent steering out of it. One thing I did notice when I went back over to move my airplane out of the flight school over to its location before I tore this stuff apart, I did taxi a little faster. My previous taxis up to this point have been really slow. I mean, like walking speed, you know, a kind of a slow walk, steady walk. So, and then trying to work with the brakes is what's been, you know, kind of iffy for me. Seemed a little too hard to actually, you know, to work with. I mean, it just seemed, I just wasn't comfortable with it. But I had this tail wheel back on, none of this stuff was on there, so it was just freewheeling, free swiveling that is. And then I was actually taxiing faster this time. And it was real windy out again. The cloud cover was really bad, threatening to rain again on Sunday. But so I taxied back over at a more brisk pace. It would be like a fast walk. If you were following me, you'd be walking, almost trotting to try and keep up with me. And I can tell you that alone right there made a difference of night and day of using the brakes to steer. That is more of what I would expect it to do, is what it was doing when I went faster. So before I was going too slow and it needed too much braking to get the thing, everything rolling and moving, and it was, you had to go back and forth. But this here, taxiing faster, I was able to just touch on the brakes and pull the nose one way and let her go, and then she'd go good, and they'd turn a little the other way, touch on the brakes, and it was steered way better. And again, that's still with the master cylinders of the wrong size. So last night, after I finished up on working on this for the night, I went in and I placed the order and got 2 new Matco master cylinders coming for the brakes. So I'll have this to install. That Matco kit will have to be installed, but those Matcos are 1 inch shorter than what I currently have, so I need to make some form of extension or a really long fork. Maybe the forks I have are longer than the Matcos, but we'll see. So I'll be getting those and have to put those in. So that's kind of where I'm at, folks. It took me a long time to get all this stuff made up today, but it's looking good. And then, of course, this wheel, you know, like I say, it's going to swivel up and down, so these cables, you know, they're free to flex up and down. There's really nothing in here that they're going to interfere with. That should be a problem. But that's the whole kit and caboodle there, folks. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. It's already going on 8:30 p.m. here. Monday, so I'll be out here tomorrow. I need to get another cable. This one I kind of cut some pieces off of for here and had to cut some other pieces off, and now it's too short. This is actually just a short piece I stuffed in there. It's only 6-7 inches long. There was a piece I had to cut off here because it frayed back and I had cut it off, but it would still been too short. These cables are 6 foot long to start with. And if I need to, I can buy some straight cable, but I think 6 foot's enough because these are only 28 inches, and then it loops around through here is about another 10-12 inches of material, and they got to stick out here about like this. So you need, you know, at least 3 inches sticking out each end, and I think 6 foot will still fill the bill. All right, folks, I'm going to cut her off here. Get this thing uploaded and get a shower and kick back and relax. I've been out here in this, it's been better in here with the door closed, and I got a little box fan running to circulate the air, but man, it's been humid as hell these last 3-4 days. Absolutely murder. All right, folks, as always, appreciate you taking the time to watch these videos, and glad everyone's enjoying what I've got so far, and see what you guys think of this setup. That's basically the whole thing right there. So as always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, or concerns, and I'll address them as they come through. But now it's just a matter of getting this thing down there and hooked up. I'll have to probably do these crimps down there on site. I'll leave them long and then make the fittings and crimp them on there. But the fitting will actually go inside this spring a little bit too to help center it better than just this little barrel assembly. So, all right, folks. Again, thanks for watching, and keep abreast. I'll be back next week with an update, and hopefully this thing will be in and working, and then we'll get some taxiing again going. If it doesn't rain again, because it's just these last 3 weekends has just been murder for rain. All right, I'm going to go here, folks, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next week. This is Dino Don out.